Hello students, it's Professor Russo again, and I want to address the thing that I believe most students are most interested in, and that is, what do you do when you're sitting across from a child and you're beginning your forensic interview? We are now going to spend the next few sessions dealing with how to do the interview, and I'm going to give you a general overview as suggested by Professor Poole. Her chapters are informed by research, and chapter 4, especially the beginning sections, are based upon the research in the field. And then later I will give you what we do in Child First Finding Words, which is substantially similar to what Professor Poole recommends. In any event, rapport building is rather straightforward. It's not rigid, but it's rather straightforward, and the purpose here is to get to know the child, to make the child feel at ease, to make the child feel comfortable. In any interaction with someone you don't know, especially when you want to get information from them and you want them to feel comfortable, you need to have a little chit chat. You know, I taught programs on interrogation of suspects when I was a chief prosecutor. And even when dealing with a suspect, you want to make that social connection, that emotional connection, because you want them to feel at ease. You want them to tell the truth about what they may or may not have done. With children in a forensic interview, it's somewhat different, but the notion of building rapport and connecting with someone on a human level is very important. And remember, these are children. They don't trust people. They may not be comfortable around people, especially people they don't know. They may be shy. They come in all shapes and sizes and emotional perspectives. So it's important that we spend some time trying to connect with them socially, and we call that rapport building. And it's part of every protocol. How that's executed, how people do that in the different protocols around the country varies, but for the most part, the purpose is the same and the substance is very, very similar. So let's take a look at general issues in rapport building. First of all, you want to get the child to relax. One way to do that is to talk to them about things they know and like, their pets, school, their family, those kinds of things. I would caution you that if it's a detective or law enforcement doing the interview, as I suggested in past audio casts, it's important that you dress down, that you dress comfortably and casually. You don't want people in uniforms or certainly displaying authority, including guns and weapons. I mean, that goes without saying. You put the guns and weapons away. If you're a detective, you dress informally. And you might want to address that issue with the child and tell that child, I'm a police officer or I'm a detective, and I'm not like the detectives that you might see on television. I'm not a police officer who wears a uniform. I talk to kids and I try to help kids. I'm a different kind of police officer, and I want to get to know you a little bit before we talk this afternoon or this morning. So that's something you need to address sometimes right away, especially if you're a member of law enforcement and you're not a child interview specialist or a forensic interviewer. You want to avoid questions like, so Danielle, how old are you? What grade are you in? What's your favorite subject? Do you like school? And the reason is those kinds of questions call for one-word responses, and that's not what we want in a forensic interview. We want to get the child to open up. We want to let the child know that they're in control of the interview. And when we ask those kinds of questions, questions that pull for a one-word response, which, by the way, are very typical of the kinds of questions that grown-ups ask children, it lets the child know that you're in control, and that's not what we want them to know, that the interviewer's in control. That's not what we want the child to believe. So we want to ask the kinds of questions that we would ask during the interview, ones that call for the child to provide information. Tell me what you like best about school. What are some of the things that your pet does that makes you laugh? Tell me everything that happens during playtime at school. These are the kinds of questions that call for the child to provide a narrative. And even though we're chit-chatting, even though we're simply getting to know the child and make them feel comfortable, it's important to get them conditioned, if you will, to get them to talk about things in their own words using a narrative rather than one-word responses. You don't want to spend too much time on this. You don't want to prolong this chit-chat. And you'll see in the Child First Finding Words protocol and in some other protocols, we do something called narrative practice. And that's another time when you'll be able to chit chat with the child just a little bit. You'll get them to open up about something they like to do, and at the same time practice providing a narrative. So don't spend too much time with this early introductory rapport building phase. And when you do change, when you do transition, when you do move on to another section in any interview protocol, it is important that you use transitions. Transitions are kind of like chapter headings, and they go like this. You know, Danielle, we spent some time getting to know each other, and now I want to talk about the rules that we use in this conversation that we're having. Now I want to talk about the rules that are important when we talk to each other, something like that. And that's your transition from rapport building to what we call the ground rules. And I'll talk about the ground rules in the next audio cast.